Welcome back to Retroing Podcast with myself, Adam, and my co-host,
Andy.
Friend.
Hello. How we doing?
I'm very well. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you. Still melting.
Excellent. Getting some great comments and reviews our Facebook's getting some more likes, I noticed, which is all good since our last episode. But today, I thought it's always interesting to learn about actors who were up for roles in movies and they ultimately weren't cast. For example, it's hard to imagine that Sylvester Stallone in the role of Superman, who was wonderfully played by Christopher Reeve. But that is something that could have happened if Marlon Brando had said no to that. Casting is one of the most important aspects of putting together a film. The filmmakers have to make sure that they have the right actors for each part in order to establish the proper emotional connection with the audience. This causes them to test several thespians, and some interesting what-ifs could have drastically altered the course of movie history. So here are my Andy's and myself's what-ifs, starting with alternative casting.
Alternative casting. So, who's going to go
Who do you
first
have
here?
in mind? Well, I am going to go with an actor who would have taken this role, and I think would have been interesting if he had, and it's Kurt Russell playing the role of Han Solo instead of Harrison Ford.
Yes, because this could have happened, couldn't it?
And that's right. And I like Kurt Russell. I love Escape from New York, and I saw him do his casting, and I thought, yeah, I could, it's very believable. Whether he would have lasted the test of time, we don't know, but certainly I think he was a great possibility as a Han Solo. As I would have liked as an alternative casting as Leonardo DiCaprio as either Qui-Gon Jinn or Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Very interesting. I like that idea.
Either one, quite frankly, they could have played. I mean, Ewan did a great job, as did Liam Neeson, but I think Leo could have done a fab job as a Jedi.
Very much so. There was with the Avengers. You're going to. Who was the first one you said again? Sorry, it was Kurt Russell as Han Solo, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That was a what if moment. One I like with the Avengers was John Krasinski was originally up for the role of Captain America.
Was he?
Yes, which is, I think, had it been now, we could possibly be seeing that. But obviously John Krasinski at the time was only really known as an employee of Dunder Mifflin, wasn't he, as in The Office. And let's be honest, you kind of look at him and think he's no Captain America. But I think we've had a couple of action movies now with Krasinski in, and we've also seen him in
and a directorial debut.
And a directorial debut with A Quiet Place. And I think, like I say, had these films be cast now, there'd probably be more weight to him getting that role, which would be interesting because I think Krasinski's a great actor, fantastic actor.
I've got a controversial one here, I think, because it involves an actor who we've seen over 2 films in the Star Wars franchise and has played this part extremely well, and it's Adam Driver as Kylo Ren and Ben Solo. And I would have think an alternative casting by Daniel Ball, who's better known for being in Rush and in Civil War, the Marvel movie. He's got a great depth to him and a real dark edge.
Adam Driver?
No, Daniel Brawl.
Yeah, he was. Who did he play in Rush? That was
he played Niki Lauda.
Niki Lauda, that was it. Yeah, he's yeah. Okay.
He would have made a good Sith Lord, I think.
While we're talking about Sith Lords then, because one of my dream bit of castings here, and I may have said his name quite a bit to you beforehand, and I'm going to say it again, but it's Mark Strong. Now,
he would make a good Sith Lord.
He would. Now I look at...
Would you helmet him, or...
Not at all.
No?
Mark Strong, he has got one of those faces where... Well, yeah, this is it. See, now I see Mark Strong as a very good replacement for Darth Maul. for Ray Parks as Darth Maul. Now, maybe if we're talking Darth Maul further down the line, a little bit older, a little bit more grizzled, like we saw at the end of Solo, I think Mark Strong could pull that off. Maybe even a bit older, further down the line than the Solo Darth Maul that we saw. Now, if it wasn't to be Darth Maul, then I think Mark Strong is one of those. He's got one of those faces where, when he smiles, he lights up the room.
But when he doesn't, he looks menacing.
He can be one scary mofo. Yeah. He really can. You know, even down to a film like The Brothers Grimsby, it's a comedy, it's stupid. When he's being angry and he's being the super spy, he is something to be feared. When he's having a laugh and a joke, he's great at that. He can, you know, we look at Kingsman, as Merlin.
Would he make a good Bond?
Will he make a good Bond? He'd make a different Bond. I'd like to see it. The trouble is with Mark Strong is I don't know if he's got the chops to carry a movie by himself as an A-list actor. I think he is one of the most consistently great actors of this generation. I love the guy to bits and I adore him. But I don't know if he could carry a franchise like Bond.
Right. Well, talking of franchise, how about the Da Vinci Code franchise, which Tom Hanks has played that role.
Robert Langdon.
But but I think Robert Downey Jr. could have played that role incredibly well.
He could have, yeah.
And I think would have really given that franchise just a little bit more kudos.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Because Hanks is not a bad actor, is he? He's not a bad actor.
If anyone ever said he was, I will hunt you down, I will find you, and I will dispose of you.
So you could say, well, maybe he was perfectly cast, but I think Downey would have given it just a little bit more...
I think maybe it was slightly out of his wheelhouse.
Possibly.
You know, he does a great Langdon. I really enjoy the first Da Vinci Code movie. The other films after that, I think, were very poor.
How about swapping Christopher Lee as Count Dooku for Alan Rickman?
Yeah, fantastic. I'm not a fan of Christopher Lee in the Count Dooku role.
Because they've got a very similar voice. You know what I mean?
And Rickman would have probably been a little bit more agile on his feet, been able to pull off a little bit more in the scenes. Plus, Rickman's Rickman. You know, when Count Dooku got his head cut off, this could have gone on for a 20-minute scene of his head rolling about on the floor, as opposed to, a quick slice, when he falls out in Nakatomi Plaza. I mean, that full last half of the movie, when he dies as Snape, that takes a good 30 seconds to a minute. Every time, Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, when he gets stabbed, he falls about that room for a good 5 minutes.
Oh, he makes the most of it.
He does. Yeah. He can ham it up to the max. And he's, Rickman's one of these modern thespians, was, God rest his soul, because an absolute legend, but he's a modern thespian. He's someone that you put him into a role and he will own that role. It's such a shame to lose people like Alan Rickman, because he is a diamond. He really is. And yeah, he would have been good in that role. Really would have.
Who else have you got for alternative roles?
No one really. Well, I've got one here now. This is a bit strange because I'm gonna break the rules here slightly, with alternative casting. And this is an old movie with someone that's too young to have been in that movie. So just imagine that we have a DeLorean here, and this person's willing to go back and make a movie.
Yeah.
It may have changed the movie slightly. Now we could do a whole alternative casting on this film, and that's I think it's Batman Forever with the Riddler. Is it Batman Forever with Jim Carrey? See, I'm not a fan of Jim Carrey. When Jim Carrey's doing comedy. When Jim Carrey's doing Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or he's doing The Truman Show, I think the guy is phenomenal. Even then, is it number 23? He's not bad in that either, but Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a masterpiece, and Jim Carrey is phenomenal in that movie. You stick him in a role like the Riddler, and he ruins it. He does the silly faces, the elaborate walks, and the mannerisms. I don't get it. I don't understand this love for Jim Carrey in comedy. But I'm going to go with Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the Riddler.
Yes, good. There's a really good call, that.
Because I think he could switch it on. He could be silly. He can be over the top. But when he wanted to be menacing, when he wants to get his point across, I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt has that.
He would have been too young for that part, though.
Oh, of course he would, but this is what I'm saying. I'm breaking the rules here. I'm talking about DeLoreans and time machines and being able to take someone back and go,
maybe in The Batman, if we get The Batman. But he has played somebody already in a Batman film.
No, he hasn't played anyone. He played a police officer that was a bloody orphan. All right, I'm not having this. He was Robin. That was silly, and it was not necessary. And that was the one thing about that film I don't like. There was no need for that at the end of that movie. However, yeah, but we know there's no consistency there with DC.
This is where another alternative casting comes in for me, because as we said on the last podcast, I would like to have seen Christian Bale in BVS and Justice League. Now, is that an alternative casting? Because he actually already has played Batman, but
no, it's alternative casting. It counts. You can loophole this.
Okay, this is going to hurt you. This one,
yeah, okay.
Because I would swap Mr. Junior for Mr. Cruz to play Tony Stark.
Well, this was again, wasn't it? This was something that could have happened.
I believe so.
Now. See, this is a hard one for me because you know my love for Tom. I'm a massive Tom Cruise fan. Where on the flip side, I really don't like Robert Downey Jr.
Now, on the flip side of that, we can now say perfectly cast as Iron Man and Tony Stark is Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what he is. He is Iron Man, and this is my point, and this is why I look at Robert Downey Jr. and I think that is perfect casting because he is Iron Man. I watch it, and the bits where I laugh, I'm laughing because he's being funny, but the bits where I'm thinking, you twonk, is because I really believe that is Robert Downey Jr. and I don't like the guy. He is the ego. I could honestly see someone like Robert Downey Jr. becoming Iron Man if he had the money because that's him. That's his persona. Well, that's what I perceive it as. I don't know him. If you're listening, Mr. Junior, I'm sorry. But it's one of those where I can't see anyone else in that role. You know, this is akin to, Thingy as Wolverine, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. They're people that they're made for that role. They are that person. Tom Cruise, I would much prefer to see, because it's Tom Cruise. I love him. But don't touch what's not broken there for me.
One of my favourite movies is by Ryan Johnson. It's called Looper, and one of the roles is Levitt. The other role is played by Bruce Willis. Now, if I was going to swap Bruce Willis in that film for Mark Strong, that would be there, wouldn't it?
That would indeed, and I'd see that as a more believable older version of Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
There we go. That would have been perfect casting, actually.
Less prosthesis needed as well, I think, for the two of them. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. But then on the side of Bruce Willis, this is, for me, perfect casting, is him as Corbin Dallas.
Yes.
In The Fifth Element. He brings that gravelly, sardonic, done with it all attitude to the role that I don't think anyone else could have brought to that. You know, we look at The Fifth Element, and originally Prince was wanted to be the part of Ruby Rhod. Now, that's some perfect alternative casting there because, let's be honest, Chris Tucker is playing Prince, essentially playing that role, isn't he? You know, he's like, okay, we didn't get Prince, so let's get Chris Tucker to play Prince because that's just what we're going to get. Whereas I look at Corbin Dallas and I think if you'd put anyone else in that role, I just don't think it would work. Same as Lilo with, what is her name?
Yes. We'll come back to her.
I can kick myself for that one, but fantastic piece of cast. I mean, that film itself, the only one is, like I say, that is wrong in my eyes, would have been better as Prince.
Chris Tucker.
Was Chris Tucker, but you know, we still got a great performance and a great movie. So, what you got next?
How do you go on to dream casting? I mean, if you're going to cast somebody perfect for a role, your dream casting, who'd that be?
David Boreanaz as Nathan Drake, and this works in two ways for me because I think when I look at the Uncharted series, they don't work as movies for me. Because they already are movies. This is where games have transcended being games and turned into interactive media, as it were. Yeah, you're playing a film when you play Uncharted. So for me, I don't really want to see anyone else in that role because Nathan Drake is Nathan Drake. It's perfect. But if you were to make a TV series, a la what we spoke about last week with Halo, and you did a, young Indiana Jones style-esque show where he does something every week and there's a main plot point that runs through the 10 episode series or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Putting David Boreanaz in that role, yes, he would be a bit older now. So I'm talking, this is Boreanaz from, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if possible. Him as Nathan Drake, I think would be fantastic. He's got the looks for it. And I think give him, because he can't carry a film. We know that. We've seen films with Boreanaz in. He's not a film actor. He's a TV actor. You put him in a TV role as Nathan Drake. Give him a bit of coaching maybe on delivering some of the comedy. I think we've got perfection there. Perfection. The only other person I think could maybe do Nathan Drake, and again, this is going back to late 90s, early 2000s, is Nathan Fillion. So if those two could get together back in 1992, have some sort of 1980 something, have some sort of love child between them that creates the look of David Boreanaz with the humour and the delivery of Nathan Fillion, you've got Nathan Drake there.
Good shout.
What you got?
I've got, for Dreamcasting, I would like to see, again, I would have liked to see Alan Rickman as Doctor Who.
Oh, now that'd get me watching it.
I think he would have been superb. Now, where he would have fitted in, that's a bit tricky because I'm a big fan of Smith and Tennant, but I wasn't a big fan of the last chap. No. Now, if Rickman's final farewell before his passing was Doctor Who, I think most people would have said that's probably one of the greatest Doctors that there's ever been. Yeah,
I can see it. I can honestly see it, mate. Little funny fact there with
there were the
Peter
dark
Capaldi.
years, weren't there, before
there's always been dark years for me because I'm not a fan of Doctor Who. But little fun fact: Peter Capaldi. I don't know if you know this. He was in World War Z. Did you ever see World War Z?
Yeah.
And in the credits for that, his title is W.H.O. Doctor. Because he is the World Health Organization doctor. And this was done a couple of months before, not a couple of months, it must have been a year or so before his, casting announcement as Doctor Who. He was cast as the Who Doctor in, World War Z.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think he would have been a great Doctor Who. And I also think if you're going to bring somebody else in that's already now sort of carved out a movie career, I think Benedict Cumberbatch would have been a brilliant Doctor.
Yeah, again, he's...
absolutely brilliant. I mean, he did take the role of Sherlock. So, again, would he really have taken... He would have had to leave that show to Doctor Who. There's no way he could have done both.
I think the thing is when you're... I'm not a fan of Doctor Who.
Freeman could do a very, very good Doctor Who, though.
Yeah, again, these are all people that have this thing to them.
Martin Freeman, I think he'd make a great Doctor, don't you think?
Yeah, they all have this thing to them. I'm not a big fan of Doctor Who, but Doctor Who always seems to be slightly, we know he's an eccentric character. He's slightly eccentric. All these people you've chose all have that quality to them, where even you look at Rickman in any of his roles where he's predominantly a villain, isn't he? He's always slightly unhinged.
Yes.
He's always got that. He's calm, collect, concise, coordinated, all the C's. But when he wants to flip that switch and be a little bit twisted, a little bit menacing, he's got it. Benedict Cumberbatch is that exactly. He can do the funny in Doctor Strange, but when he's being an arse, he can be an arse. And that is Doctor Who, isn't it? There's those times where he's very much dry, to the point, and then he's just stupid. Mm-hmm. And yeah, all these people. Freeman's another one. I've seen a lot of him lately, and he's changing my mind. I didn't like him at first in Black Panther, but he really grew on me as a character. By the end of it, I was kind of rooting for him. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, and like I say, I've really got to sit down and watch some Doctor Who, but that is a quality choice there.
Sadly, we've also lost one of the greatest British comedians of all time, is Rick Mayall. I think Rick Mayall would have made a brilliant Doctor Who. Brilliant Doctor Who. Seriously. But if you're going to go quirky, Noel Fielding.
Noel Fielding would be great as Doctor Who.
Now, if that's going to be after this new female Doctor, then I think they've totally nailed it.
There's a chance that could happen, isn't there?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, especially Noel Fielding's position now in TV. He's a household name on British television.
I would have liked Russell Brand to have taken that on at some point, but Noel Fielding is the perfect choice for that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because
choice.
That's a choice that is a possibility. You look at people like Alan Rickman, and I know obviously he's not with us now. If he was, I don't think we'd ever see that happen. Maybe in a movie form, you might, but Rickman's a bit too big, I think, for Saturday night entertainment on TV.
Sure.
Or whenever it is.
Who else have you got that you'd like to see cast in something?
Well, I have got, and this has been spoken about, so it's not just me per se saying this, but I would like to see Sebastian Stan play Luke Skywalker in a movie. Now, I don't know whether that would be this is Jedi onwards, Return of the Jedi onwards. See Sebastian Stan in a role as him. I don't know, have you ever seen the pictures on the internet, the comparison?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's uncanny.
It's uncanny.
It is uncanny. And I mean, this is what I'd like to see now, is because of that uncanniness. I think you could put it off. You try to do a film, say, between Empire and Return of the Jedi, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work at all, because headcanon for us lot, we're just not going to accept it. Saying that, look at Solo and look at Rogue One, we've enjoyed all of them, so Lord knows. But I think if you were going to do this and make it believable and make people enjoy it, if you did a Star Wars movie set after Return of the Jedi of Luke going off and doing this Jedi temple and everything, and you had Sebastian Stan playing that role, that'd be brilliant.
Good pick. An actor that I think would be very, very good if you were going to make another Back to the Future movie would be a guy called Ansel Elgort, who was in Baby Driver.
I know this name. Yeah.
Yeah. The actor that was in Baby Driver.
Who?
As Michael J. Fox.
Really?
I think if they were going to make a fourth, what better person to play it? Because he looks a little like Michael J. Fox.
Does he really? I know that name.
It's always one of. He also looks like Declan McFarlane, whatever his name is, from and Deck. But there we go. But
McFarlane, yeah.
But I think he's someone. If you're going to make another, Back to the Future film.
Ansel Elgort.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was just trying to get my.
I know this guy. Yeah.
I think he'd make a great cast if you're going to build another film out of Back to the Future.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I suppose if you was going to revamp it and do a modern one, in some ways I like it when they do that. If you was to say do Back to the Future and you was going to recast Marty McFly, not that I'd ever want them to do it, but if they were going to, I prefer it when they use people that aren't A-list when they do things like this, because I think that sometimes that can take you out of the movie.
Well, an actress that's also in Baby Driver is Isa Gonzalez. She's a beautiful woman who'd be a brilliant Wonder Woman. So, swapping her for Gal Gadot, there's another actress to look out for. She's
got the looks, hasn't she? For that. Yeah, she's very similar. Yeah, okay.
So, I think more importantly, we've got to look at actors that have played their roles so perfect, and that's down to the casting.
Oh, sorry, can I just throw one more in here?
Yeah, go.
Because there is somebody else I've just thought of, and I don't want to exclude the ladies out of this, but I was never I enjoyed the first two Tomb Raider movies, but I'm not a Jolie fan. I always think she gets more credit than she deserves for her roles, and Alicia Vikander, I think, is a fantastic actor, and I loved her in Ex Machina. I haven't seen the new Tomb Raider yet, but to me, she doesn't fit that British Rose, which is what
is needed.
Is needed for to play Lara Croft. I would like to see Lily James in that role.
Good call.
Yeah, and I think she's got the looks, she's got the accent, and she's got the ability to pull off that role. And I don't know if you've seen Pride, Prejudice and Zombies, but it's stupid fun. It's absolutely bonkers. It's one of those, stick it on a Saturday night while you're doing something else, but you will enjoy it. You will enjoy it.
Well, let's look at Stranger Things.
Okie dokie.
And the young actress that is in that.
Oh, Millie Bobby Brown. She is phenomenal.
Yeah. Now, if we were going to do a Leia film.
Well, there's nobody else, is there?
Yeah.
She's shown interest in this as well, hasn't she?
Well, if in the future, because obviously they're going to have to complete Carrie's role. And, if she's at one with the Force, of course, then we may even have a Force go for Leia. So, who knows? But yeah, perfect casting.
Perfect casting.
Top of my list is is an actor who's currently in a film that your wife's watching.
Yep, she is.
Now, I don't know of anybody any better to play a character called Deadpool than Ryan Reynolds.
No, Ryan Reynolds is
Deadpool.
He is Deadpool, isn't he? Deadpool. Yeah, he is. Sorry, my wife's actually looking at me now when I've just said Ryan Reynolds. I don't know if it's because I've mentioned Ryan Reynolds and it makes her hot under the collar. But she said she still would, even with the Deadpool thing. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, the face that looks like an avocado had. Yeah, but yeah, he is fantastic in that role, isn't he? He is perfect. There is no other choice, I think. I mean, but at the end of the day, those films wouldn't be made if it wasn't for Ryan Reynolds, would they? I mean, he advocated most of that himself. He got the ball rolling, releasing the footage, the test footage they did himself, which kind of backed the studio in a corner to make the movie as well. So,
other movies that he's been in, I mean, obviously we've got to talk about Green Lantern.
Yeah,
I honestly,
Mark Strong's in that.
He is. I was going to go there. I was going to go there. Do you know, I must be the only one who actually didn't think that was a bad film at all.
No, I've agreed with you this before. We've spoke about this, and I like the Green Lantern movie, but it's just another misstep from DC on their their connected world, isn't it? I think DC should just stop trying to do that and just make standalone movies. They should just go, let's just make standalone, because the Green Lantern it has its flaws. There's bits of the movie that take a little bit of a nosedive and they didn't utilise certain characters the way they could have done. Is it Brainiac, isn't it?
Yes.
His friends, that was a kind of a thread that wasn't necessary in the movie. But otherwise, what if the core root of the movie, CGI is not great in places. What is actually wrong with it? I don't understand people's problem per se with the Green Lantern aspect of this movie.
Well, we had two Hulk films, didn't we, before we got Hulk that we have now? And both of those are bad films.
I don't like the Ang Lee one. I'll go as far as say I really don't like the Ang Lee Incredible Hulk that we had. It's too camp for my liking. It was
okay. I'll give you that.
It's a bit too in the past. Had that come out around the time of, say, Batman Forever, you'd be looking at this going, this is one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen, because it was far beyond that era's style of superhero movie. Mm-hmm. However, it was at a very awkward time around the time of the Spider-Man movies where these superhero movies were kind of finding their feet.
Well, with Spider-Man, when having Tom Holland now in the suit, I actually do think that's a really phenomenal casting there. I mean, you couldn't get anybody more agile than him, could you? I mean, he's a phenomenal dancer and gymnast.
Do you watch Lip Sync Battle?
Brilliant. Oh, yeah. That is something to behold, isn't it, watching that?
It is.
Doing Rihanna's Umbrella.
Yeah, and he's opposite Zendaya, isn't it? The girl who's in the movie with him. And him doing Umbrella, I mean, first of all, that guy pulls off stockings and suspenders. Like, it turned my head, I'll tell you that. But he can move. Like you say, those moves on that boy. And I would never have seen this. I mean, I didn't really know who Tom Holland was before this movie. And this is what this is what I was saying to you before about how when they choose someone that's not A-list, like recasting Marty McFly, it works better. You recast Spider-Man, we've had Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and they were both flavour of the month when those movies came out. And you put someone in that role, again now, that's famous, they're living up to somebody else's expectations. When you put a nobody in there are no expectations. You're going, well, what's this kid going to bring? This is strange. I didn't expect this. And, you know, this is what I always say about Wolverine. If you was to recast Hugh Jackman, stick a nobody in that role in an Avengers movie, and nobody is going to care because you're going to see Wolverine in an Avengers movie. You recast it with someone famous in it, say Luke Evans, for instance, the guy from Van Helsing, it was Dracula Untold and the Hobbit movies. He's always one that I think, yeah, he'd make a cool Wolverine. But you stick Luke Evans in that role, and because he's famous, people are going to be making comparisons. You stick somebody in that role that you don't know as Wolverine, and there are no expectations.
Tom Holland, perfect casting.
He is. He really is fantastic in that movie.
Another franchise that has seen, I don't know how many Bonds there've been, but for me personally, I think Daniel Craig is the best Bond.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm used
sorry
to
to
think
say
it
that.
was, yeah, no, I always,
fans, but
yeah, no, because I am a Connery fan. To me, Bond is very much a product. The films you watch are products of their time. And, you know, my wife had never seen any James Bond movies, believe it or not. And I said to her, look, you really need to sit and watch these Daniel Craig ones because you will really enjoy them. She was like, yeah, I know, but everyone goes on about Sean Connery. But I was okay. So we went to Dr. No, the first James Bond movie of that, you know, this franchise. You know, I know we've got Casino Royale and things like that with David Niven. But I said to her, okay, we'll watch Dr. No. And I was sitting there watching her with her, and for me, it was painful because she's looking at me like, are you mad? And I was like, and I was trying to explain to her, I said, I understand that this looks stupid, but this was made in the 60s. You know, this is something you've got to understand about it. And I'm thinking through fresh eyes, people don't get the Sean Connery of it all. You know, that we're looking at Dr. No and he's having this choreographed fight scene with someone where he flips him over his shoulder. And it almost looked like there was a guy off screen telling them when and where to do it. It was that.
Yeah, I think Fleming would have said, hang on a minute, this isn't quite my book.
Yeah, but the point there is it's hard to get into retrospectively. Somebody who, you know, my wife's a few years younger than me, and for her to watch it, she's not getting it. She didn't grow up on James Bond. It wasn't a staple in her household like it was me. So I forgive it its flaws, and I forgive it its campness, and I forgive it its silliness sometimes that James Bond has. You know, I'm not a Roger Moore fan at all. I will skip those movies because I think he's just terrible. Dalton, I really enjoy the Dalton movies because to me, they're almost a bridge to Daniel Craig. What's his name? Pierce Brosnan is to Roger Moore what Daniel Craig is to Timothy Dalton. There is no other Sean Connery in this mix here. So that's why I like Sean Connery ones still. But the Pierce Brosnan to me was very much at the wrong time. They tried to recapture this magic of the early 80s, mid 80s James Bond movies, but they did it in the late 90s and the mid 90s, and it was wrong. It didn't work for me. It was all too colourful villains, and I almost felt like we were going to get a Moonraker-esque movie out of this, and this ice palace in the middle of some. It was all very silly, and I didn't like it. And then we got Daniel Craig come swooping in and creating.
I think we've got these films on the back of the Bourne series, though, haven't we?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I think if it wasn't for those Bourne movies, we wouldn't have James Bond as we have now. And I probably wouldn't have survived another revival like Pierce Brosnan. Because I go back and I remember these films coming out, and I remember people not being happy with the Pierce Brosnan James Bond films. as a general rule of people I knew, they were like, well, I'm not really a fan. Now, for some reason, GoldenEye is looked upon like one of the greatest Bond films ever made. And I don't get that. But then I remember going in to see, Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. I was like, this is a good bit of casting. I like this. Is different. And that first scene in black and white where he's in that toilet and he beats the granny out of that other guy and he smashes his head in. And I remember the whole cinema, this kind of like air of, huh? You know, like, what's just happened? This is James Bond. I'm expecting, you know, him to come in and shock him with a little watch with a zapper on it or something. And he beat 7 bells out of that guy. Yeah. And it's brutal. And I was like, I'm up for this. I want more of this. And we got more of that over the next.
Well, we did. Quantum of Solace actually isn't a bad movie at all. But, you know, Skyfall really is. Yeah, it's
Quantum of Solace.
So far.
I think with Quantum of Solace, had that have been a really long movie with Casino Royale and been 4 hours long, people would have loved it. I just think that's the second part of a movie. Yeah, but it's not the best part of that movie. It's the one that on its own it suffers because there's not much really to it. Well,
now we know with Spectre that it is a quadrilogy of films.
Yeah.
So,
and it works so well. But Daniel Craig, probably, aside from Ryan Reynolds, is one of the best bits of casting in the last decade or so. You know, he's great.
Yeah. Who was the guy who was going to play Captain America before Chris Evans? Because Chris Evans, I think, is a great...
John Krasinski, from The Office.
Well, I personally think Chris Evans is Captain America. There's a brilliant bit of casting there. It
is, I get it. That's what I'm saying, but I wouldn't mind seeing Krasinski in that role. If we could turn back time, watch it happen once and see if I liked it, great. But, you know, we're not going to. While we're on perfect casting, there's another couple I want to bring up. And the first one is Zachary Quinto as Spock.
And also Chris Pike as Kirk.
Chris Pine as Kirk.
Sorry, Pine.
Yes, they are. I mean, JJ must have sat there. I don't know, you know, how much of a say he has in the casting, because I know we have casting directors, don't we, and people that pick these things up. I'm sure a director of the movie has a final say to a degree on these things. I don't know what those guys did in their auditions, but they must have done something right. Yeah. Because we go to Chris Pine here first. Because I think there's more to be said on Zachary Quinto. There's probably less to be said on him actually because he's just perfect. But Chris Pine brought something akin to Daniel Craig in James Bond.
He reflects Shatner.
Yeah, but then Craig
and Pinto reflects Nimoy beautifully. I mean, beautifully.
Not for the fact that he looks the spitting image of him when he's got the ears on. But it's that Daniel Craig comparison of they bring something new to the role that was necessary while keeping the much loved sort of gumph of that character. You know, Daniel Craig oozes James Bond, but he brings this role of brutality to that. Whereas Chris Pine is Shatner. You're right. He does the Shatner bit without being the silly Shatner. He does the womanizing and the fighting in the bar. That's all Shatner. You know, he would have just gone, all right, I'll just punch you because that's the way I'm going to deal with this. But then he brings this level of seriousness when seriousness is needed that Shatner, I don't think, could bring to that role. Quinto, on the other hand, is just Spock. I think when he walked in that room, I mean, he already knew J.J. Abrams anyway, didn't he, from Heroes. So, you know, he probably had a shoe in straight away there. He'd probably spoken to him about it before because I can imagine JJ sitting there. I stopped
watching Heroes after Quinto was in series 1. I thought he rounded that off so beautifully, and I couldn't be bothered to watch anything after that.
It was such a shame, that series. I could do a whole series of podcasts on that because Heroes at the time was one of my favourite things ever created.
That first series was phenomenal, wasn't it?
2 was really good, and then the writer's strike happened, and I cursed that writer's strike because that is what killed Heroes. They condensed a 23 episode series. I think it was into 12 episodes. And this is what you were saying earlier about cutting out half an hour out of a film. You've just cut out like 15 hours out of something, and that is going to kill it. And it never recovered from that. It never recovered. So, but Quinto as Spock, phenomenal. Yeah. The other one I want to bring up is a great bit of casting here, and I think this is because of the person's acting chops, is Josh Brolin as a young Agent K in Men in Black 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I watched that movie, and to me, it was like I was sitting there watching Tommy Lee Jones. I don't know how he did it. I don't know what he did. And I know that Tommy Lee Jones is a massive fan of this performance himself, because it's Tommy Lee Jones, man. It's a young Tommy Lee Jones through that film. And I can even see it in Will Smith in his performance of how much he's enjoying Josh Brolin playing young Agent K, because and he does it so well, because Smith and Tommy Lee Jones have a really good dynamic on screen together, a really good chemistry, and they still manage to have that with Brolin as a young Agent K. He somehow manages to capture the spirit of Tommy Lee Jones in that character, and you can see it in Will Smith, the way they're still bouncing off of each other. That's probably got a lot to do with the writing as well. You know, obviously he's managing to believe the script. But yeah, Josh Brolin as K was, for me, one of the funniest moments I ever saw when he first delivers a line. And I was like, it's mad, absolutely mad watching it.
He's been a very busy man this year. I mean, he's had probably the highest grossing movie of the year, if not nearly of all time, in Infinity War, and playing Thanos, and then playing Cable in Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that again, perfect casting for that guy. He's had two phenomenal roles in such a short succession.
He's a great actor, isn't he?
He's a great actor.
Even when, you know...
And he's in Sicario too.
Do you think that his...
he's in Sicario, and he's in Sicario too.
So, do you think his casting in the Avengers early on, well, not early on, was it, in the last couple of years, changed the idea,
direction,
changed the direction for Infinity War? Because, like we said, we got a Thanos origin story with Avengers Infinity War. Do you think we would have got a different movie?
I think when they've looked at this cast, when they did their sort of celebration, you know, they got all these actors and actresses together to sort of celebrate. I think they must have just thought, do you know what, we have got such an ensemble, you know, a fine cast assemble here, and we've got Josh Brolin playing Thanos. If we don't make something of this guy, this character that we've slowly been easing into the MCU, then, you know, something wrong somewhere.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
And they went big.
And I think because they've got such a great guy playing that role, they'll be foolish not to do something more with him. And of course, they went towards Infinity Gauntlet. The other guy who's also obviously in MCU is Benedict Cumberbatch playing Doctor Strange, and that is another perfect bit of casting. Yeah,
I would never have seen it. I remember when this got announced.
He looks so much like him.
Yeah, I was doing another podcast at the time when this got announced, and I remember we spoke about it on there, and I was blown away. It was one of those that you didn't see it coming, and then somebody released some concept art that they'd done, like some fan art, and I looked at it, and I was like, there is no one else. There is no one else visually that is that perfect as Doctor Strange. And I would never have believed it before, because I'd only ever seen Benedict Cumberbatch. I think, what was it in? It must have been Sherlock at the time. But yeah, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is why casting directors, my hat goes off to them sometimes. You know, but their choices. You know, we spoke about the young boy that played Elliot in E.T., and they have to sit there and watch these performances. But I think when you get somebody like the lad who played Elliot, or you maybe get Benedict Cumberbatch in for the role, they're not just looking at the lines they're delivering. They're not just looking at the performance they do in that room.
And that whole demeanour.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. You know, these people behind the scenes of movies, I sometimes don't think get the credit they deserve. You know, like Foley artists. Foley artists are something that if I could have ever gone back to a childhood and said, I want to be that when I grow up, that would be one of those things. I think I'd love to do that. You know, making the sound effects for movies. You see it with Star Wars, don't you? The banthas, the noises they make are what the elephants and animals having sex, isn't it? Or something, I think. Mm-hmm. And you know, and I mean,
well, I mean, if you're going to make sound effects, the best films to be in a martial art film, surely.
Yeah, but
they've got everything going on.
I was watching this documentary about it the other day, and this guy was doing like, it was somebody walking along the beach, and he had some shoes on a stick, and he was walking along some stones. But it didn't just go as far as that. Then he had something in the background that was making the clip of the hill. So he was doing another sound to layer over the top of it. And because that wasn't right, then he used a different sound of a bit of wet paper on something just to give it an extra squelch. And these are the things that make films real. And, we go, oh, that film's directed by Peter Jackson. Yeah, but I tell you what, 99% of the work wasn't done by him. Mm. You got the key grip and the Foley artist and the casting director and the actors on screen, the writers of it, and too much attention sometimes given to the director, I think.
Two movies that Jack Nicholson has been in, obviously, The Shining and Tim Burton's Batman, where he played the Joker. I mean, there has been other Jokers, but, Nicholson's Joker is phenomenal, but no one else could have played Jack in The Shining better than Nicholson. And certainly, was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest before or after? I
think that was before.
Yeah, so I mean, he'd already played this kind of mad character and was absolutely ideal for that role.
Yeah. When did The Shining come out?
I'd be inclined to say something like 1979.
Let me have a quick look. The Shining came out in 1980, so good call there. Yeah, I know Cuckoo's Nest was 75.
Right.
So, so it's a good 5 years there. But
back in 1980, there was one of my favourite movies. Actually, it wasn't it's Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford playing Rick Deckard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could there ever be another Indiana Jones better played by anybody else other than Harrison Ford?
No, but I do think that if they do these new Indiana Jones movies, that they're much spoken about, they are doing it, aren't they? The fourth one's being made now. I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Pratt taking on that mantle. I think Chris Pratt could do Indiana Jones.
He could do it
for a modern generation. We see it as the character Owen in Jurassic World. He's got the running through the jungle and jumping over things bit down. You stick a fedora and a bullwhip on the guy, and he could be Indiana Jones. Now, this is again one of those things where we turn around and say we don't ever want it remade. And I know I'm going against my earlier thing about casting an unknown in a role, but I think with someone like Pratt, he is that character, and I think Pratt would be a great Indiana Jones.
Now, last week, you went to go and see Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
I did indeed.
Now, without getting obviously too spoilery, give us your review on that film.
A little review on this film, okay.
Now, I know obviously Jurassic Park, you are a big fan of these films.
It is indeed. It's in my top 10, in my non-fluid top 10.
Now, when I asked you about this, you just gave me a big thumbs up, so clearly you enjoyed it. So
I did. Right, and I'm going to try and be spoiler-free as I possibly can.
Give us a run through of the basic story. And
so the basic story is the dinosaurs have been left on the island after the events of Jurassic World, where the park all goes kablooey again. Now, there are groups of people, I forget her name, Owen, and what's the young lady's name? Bryce Dallas Howard's character. She is now working for like a group like PETA, Save the Animals, but it's Save the Dinosaurs. And there is a volcano that is about to erupt on this island. Now, the political stand is that you leave the dinosaurs to it. They're abhorrent. They're not a creation of God in the eyes of the courts, so therefore they should just be left alone, like we would do with any other animals on any other island, and let nature run its course. like it did in the past. But these groups of people are out there saying, we would go and save any other animals, so let's go save them, because they are animals all the same. So she's working for one of these groups, and Hammond's Foundation. Now, there's a character in here that gets brought in that is one of Hammond's friends that they started off Jurassic Park together, which is a bit of annoyance because he never really gets mentioned beforehand until this movie. So, you know, as far as you're always concerned, it was just Hammond. But there's this partner of his that has worked with him over the years. Sorry. And he gets this young lady, Bryce, I can't remember her name, it's really bugging me. And he says to her, look, we'll do it. You know, he's got the money. He tells about his differences with Hammond, and how Hammond was always a little bit more eccentric and driven, but he still wouldn't let this happen. So he says to her, look, you know, I'm going to get you on that island. I'm going to get these dinosaurs off, and I'm going to need your help doing it. So she's all cool with that because, you know, I kind of get where she's coming from. They're animals at the end of the day, and they didn't choose to be left on that island to burn alive. But obviously the only way that they're going to get on this island and sort out the problem of Blue, the velociraptor that is running around, is by getting Owen on board with it. This is jumping forward a bit in time as well, because obviously we have them having a relationship at the end of the film. And in this, they are past their relationship, and, they're obviously gone their separate ways. So there's that sort of comedy aspect there between the two of them having their back and forth through the movie. So that's kind of like the premise of the movie. So they go back to the island. So I thought it was a very comparable to Jurassic Park 2 in that we're going back to the island where dinosaurs are running amok. However, when Jurassic World come out, I said, this is the sequel that I wanted to Jurassic Park. It makes perfect sense. Let's do this 10 years, 20 years down the line. And that's a sequel you need. You know, you're doing a direct sequel to a movie. You know, it went wrong first time, but we've learned from our mistakes. We're doing it again. Forget all of what I said there, because this is the perfect sequel. This is, if this had been Jurassic Park 2, I'd have been so happy, because it covers what we've been missing since Jurassic Park 1. And that is the question element. You know, what does he say about scientists never stop to think? They always thought whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And it raises those questions again throughout this movie on different levels, you know, with saving the dinosaurs and whether or not they should be left there. And also, and I mean, this is hard to go into without spoiling the big reveal.
But it's got a greater depth to it than
much greater depth, and it felt like a true sequel. It was a lot darker than any of the Jurassic Park films we've had. There was some definite scary moments in there for younger children. Like, I know my nephew went to see it 'cause it's a 12A and he's only 5. Apparently he loved it, but I did sit there and I was thinking to myself, I'm not sure if he should go watch this. Because there's some very clever visuals with lighting and lightning at some point, some fog, some real menacing scenes.
This is directed by Colin Trevorrow.
Trevorrow, it is indeed.
Yeah. So do you think he did a great job on this?
I think he did a fantastic job, mate. I can't.
And reviews-wise, what have you read of the reviews for this film?
Reviews-wise, it's been okay. It's not done anywhere near. I don't think the money that the first one made.
Is it doing well in the old Rotten Tomatoes score?
Well, on IMDb it's a 6.6 out of 10 and a Metacritic score of 51. Claire Deering, that's her name, sorry. So it's not done as good as the first one, because the Jurassic World is on a 7.0, so it's not as. But I think, to be honest with you, I enjoyed it more.
So where do you think this film has fallen?
I'm not sure.
I mean, is this a Fallen Kingdom film? Is it, you know, or is it doing okay for what it is? Do you think this should have come out in the summer holidays?
Yes, I think it would have definitely benefited from coming out in the summer holidays, because it is a family film, regardless of the scarier bits in it. It's definitely a family film. But where I think it falls down for itself is the first one did better than it should have.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I think
doesn't help anything following, does it?
No, exactly. The first one, I really enjoyed Jurassic World, but I come out of there going, you know, this is a great perfect sequel to the first film.
Mm-hmm.
But did we really need it? It's one of those like Solo. Do we really need it? We don't need it, but we can enjoy it for what it is. Whereas Fallen Kingdom, I think this is a film we did need for the franchise, but unfortunately, not the damage has been done, but the fan base has been set.
So do you think this? Your comparison to Jurassic World, what would your score be for the first film out of 10?
For Jurassic World, I'd probably give it a 7.
And this one?
Probably an 8.
Really?
Yeah, give it a point more. I really enjoyed it. I went. It was a Sunday night. And I was sitting at home. I said to you, I do this quite a lot. It wasn't, Monday night. I do it quite a lot. I sit there, I get bored, and I think, I'm going to cinema. And I was sitting there, and I did the same thing, and I got halfway there, and I thought to myself, I'm really not that bothered about watching this. It was, I want to watch Fallen Kingdom at some point. I wasn't in the frame of mind for it. And I got halfway there, and I thought, well, if I get there and it hasn't started, I'll go see it, maybe. And I pulled up in the car park and I played on my phone for a bit, and then I thought, I'll go in. And as it was, I got in and it still had 5 minutes before it started, and I put my card in the machine and I bought the ticket, and I was like, well, I suppose I'm watching it now. And I wasn't, like I say, I wasn't really, that bothered. I come out of there with the biggest smile on my face, thinking, I could go and watch that again straight away. I think Claire definitely had a lot more depth to her character in this one. Owen's character was definitely not as one-dimensional as he was in the first one. The action here, I love Chris Pratt, but a character like his in this, there isn't really much to it, is it? He's just playing the brawn, but there was more to him in this. I won't go into the Jeff Goldblum bit too much because I thought that was disappointing. I think you'll get my gist out of that from that, because I said to you before, I thought I knew what happened from the trailer. Just don't expect much there is all I'll say.
Right. So you'd recommend this film to lovers of Jurassic Park?
Very much so.
Jurassic World.
If you liked Jurassic World, you're gonna really enjoy this. If you love Jurassic Park, you're gonna enjoy this. If you don't really not that bothered about any of them, don't bother watching it. But it's just more of the same, but better, if that makes any sense. Yeah. It's you're going to see a Jurassic Park movie. If you're expecting anything more than people running away from dinosaurs, you're going to be very much mistaken. And you're going to be very, very disappointed. But if you're expecting to go see that with some added bonuses, then yeah, you're in for a treat. So, yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
So, what's on your watch list then for the next forthcoming week?
For the forthcoming week, well, strange one. We've got into Orange is the New Black at the moment, so we're watching a hell of a lot of that. Again, it was one of those shows like Gilmore Girls. I'll admit it. I'm a Gilmore Girls fan, where my wife puts it on. I go, I'm not interested. And the next thing you know, the laptop's on the floor and I'm engrossed in it with a bowl of popcorn and, 7 seasons deep into this stuff. And that's exactly what's happening with the Orange is the New Black at the moment. But I do have some movies that are on my list of things to watch, and they're mostly ones that you've said to me. They Live is definitely on my list.
Oh, yes. John Carpenter's film.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into a bit more of since doing this podcast as well, I'm trying to watch some golden oldies. I want to go back and start watching some older stuff because I get very much caught up in what's new. It's easy to watch, especially modern cinema, I think is quite easy to stick on in the background. Deadpool's a prime example of that. I've probably watched that film more this year than any other films because it's on Netflix. And when I'm doing something on the laptop, I'll stick Deadpool on and I can watch him, kick some butt for an hour and a half in the background because it's not exactly hard storytelling to pick up on either.
No, that's right. It's not at all.
But yeah, I'm definitely going into the more retro feel films for the next few weeks.
Good. Well, we just had the second series of Luke Cage has started, and I'm getting myself through that. It's actually not bad at all.
I love Daredevil. Daredevil was one of my favourite things that come out a few years ago. And I think Marvel, this is where Marvel and DC differ. DC owned the hell out of TV for a while. When Arrow was on and Flash first started, they were fantastic. They've lost it a little bit lately, I'll admit that. But I don't think Marvel have really got this TV thing down.
Right.
Daredevil was fantastic. Jessica Jones was okay. I lost it after that. I wasn't bothered. There's nothing enticing about these Marvel TC.
I really love the music that's in Luke Cage. I'm very much into, R&B and funk and soul, so I'm quite often shazamming the tracks that are being played, and I've added that to my iTunes because there's some great stuff on there.
I get it if you like it, and I'm not saying they're bad things because, like I say, I love Daredevil, but I still haven't watched Daredevil season 2, and I know I'll enjoy it. There's just something about Marvel TV shows. Yeah, absolutely. I know I would.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, again, let's go to perfect casting here. That's a bit left field, but Charlie Cox as Matt, is not what I would have expected. The last time I saw, Mr. Cox was in Stardust. And when they first announced him, when they first cast him, I was so surprised. I thought that's just wrong, but no, it works so well.
Well, I've also really enjoyed something called Lego House, which was the building construction, the architecture of the Lego house.
Now this is on Netflix, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Really great, very interesting, and enjoyable. Another one-off by Duncan Jones is Mute, which didn't get great reviews, to be honest. But I'm sort of halfway through it. It's very sort of Blade Runner-esque. Alter Carbon again is in that same kind of vein, but I'm halfway through that, so I'm gonna try and finish that off. A movie that I didn't see was Jack Ryan with Chris Pine.
Mm-hmm.
And Fury with what's his name? I can't remember. Brad Pitt, thank you, and Shia LaBeouf. I'm going to give that a go because I do like it in my war movie, and when they're good, and I've heard really great things about that.
I've heard good things about Fury as well. Yeah,
it's been on that list for a while, and I thought I need to get around to watching that. I rewatched Shaun of the Dead this week. And I watched the Blues Brothers again this week.
Fantastic.
And absolutely loved them. And I watched them back to back. So they were really very, very different films. But great comedy. And I must admit, I enjoyed Shaun of the Dead a lot better this time. Because I think I've been watching more horror, I suppose.
Yeah.
It just helps to just realize that this is not real. And I noticed more actors in Shaun of the Dead from Matt Lucas and people from Spaced, of course.
Yeah.
Another film that I would really recommend is a movie called Midnight Special.
Oh, Michael Shannon
And Joel Edgerton and
Kirsten. I haven't seen this yet, but it's been in my watch list for a long time.
This was a second watch for me, and I thought, right, I'm going to add this to my list of films on Netflix because I really want to watch this again. If you haven't seen this film, it's when this guy's son exhibits supernatural powers, and as a father takes the youngster on the run to protect him from government authorities and religious fanatics. Now, it might not sound particularly exciting, but it has a little bit of kind of a Super 8 E.T. Close Encounters kind of feel to it, and this kid is brilliant in it, and it's just a great film, and definitely worth watching, as is The Belko Experiment. Do you know about a film called The Belko Experiment?
No.
This is a movie that I think was... I think it was produced by Gunn, actually, James Gunn.
All right.
Basically, it's a lot of guys at work, and they get instructed via an intercom to kill people in the next half hour.
Ah, yes, I do know this
80
film.
American expats go to turn on each other in a desperate attempt to survive. I did watch Cargo with Martin Freeman, and it's very good.
Yeah.
It finished well, and I'd highly recommend that. But on my list for this week, I'm going to try and get around to watching The Abyss again, James Cameron's movie. Do you love that film?
Double thumbs up from me, mate.
Yeah.
Ed Harris is brilliant in this film.
It's a film that I think deserves to be watched about every sort of 10 years and give it a look. Also, I think because of the CG in it, and just have a look at it and see how that's dated.
I think it's done pretty well, to be honest.
Michael Biehn, is it?
Bain, yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm going to give that a rewatch because I think.
Do you know one other one from that era that I like? It's not on the same level as Abyss, but it's Cocoon.
Oh, I knew it was going to say that.
Yeah, I love it. It's such a quaint little movie.
Who directed that?
No, my brain's gone dead. No. But I do. I Cocoon 2 not so much. It's not as necessary. But it's one of those quaint little movies that you just think every few years, every 10 years, just chuck it on, give it a watch, because it just gives you a little bit of enjoyment.
I think Jodie Foster in Contact is another one of those.
That's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, it does deserve rewatching.
Sci-fi doesn't have to be all guns, lasers, and
Well, this is the next part of where I wanted to go with this conversation, because Neil Johnson is a director that most people have not heard of. This British-born actor who moved to Australia has done over 500 music pop videos for heavy metal bands like Manowar, and has made 14 sci-fi movies. Now, sci-fi doesn't have to be made on a big budget, and this guy, I think the biggest budget he's probably had is about $2 million. Alien Dawn, his movies are. He's got Rogue Warrior, which is coming out, which is I think is released, but it's not available on Amazon or Netflix, unfortunately. But his movies are available on Amazon Prime. They're just what you get from his science fiction is passion. You get actors that are really believable in their roles. You get the best sci-fi story you can get from anybody, from Neil Johnson, and you get special effects. Okay, I would say they're on a budget, but they're brilliant. They're brilliant movies, and they're worth giving a go. There are some pretty poor reviews I did notice on various places on his films, saying that these are below B films and that kind of stuff. Sci-fi is all about what you get from it, and I know you're on the Johnson thing here, but I agree, because there is a film for me that sometimes it hits my top 10 and our fluid top 10s. There's a film called The Divide. Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever seen this movie? I have, yeah.
Now, The Divide is directed by Xavier Gens. Mm-hmm. To me, is a masterpiece, especially for the budget it's on. Now, I've recommended this to a couple of people who've watched it, and those sentiments are kind of echoed through there. Maybe not as much of a love, but yeah. I mean, this is a Metascore of 28 and an IMDb of 5.8 out of 10. Why? I don't understand. This has got Michael Biehn in it again, and Milo Ventimiglia. And his performance in this, Milo Ventimiglia being Peter Petrelli from Heroes, his performance in this is stunning.
This is a movie about a devastating nuclear attack that thrust 9 strangers together in a bunker in a basement of their New York apartment building. The survivors are trapped underground with no hope of rescue, and the only horror on the other side of the door. As supplies dwindle and tempers flare, they become increasingly unhinged by the close quarters and hopelessness of their situation and turn on one another. Still, one survivor holds on to a thin chance of escape, even though salvation is unlikely. Now, the budget for this film was probably minuscule, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I can't see it being big, because even, like you say, the CGI scenes aren't, not there are many, because the film
Cloverfield didn't have them.
No, exactly. But there is one standout performance in this movie. Just want to go to this. Is Michael Eklund, and like you say, I don't think it comes down to budget or anything like that. It's storytelling and the actors in it. Milo Ventimiglia is great in this movie. But Michael Eklund as Bobby had me all the way through the film. His performance sucked me into this movie and made it all so real. I haven't seen Michael Eklund in much, and I know that looking through his filmography, there's films I've seen with him in it, and I've probably never noticed him because he's nobody. He isn't a big actor. But you watch this movie and you'll know what I mean when you see this, if you haven't seen it, that it is probably I love my post-apocalyptic movies. It's probably one of my favourites, if not my favourite, because I think it's just a really unsung piece of work. It really needs more attention than it gets.
Good call. Well, that's definitely a movie for some people to check out. So that's The Divide. Where can we see that? Do you know if that's available on any streaming services?
Honestly, don't know. I'm sure it's not on Netflix because I have searched for it on there before. So unless it's been added recently, I have searched for it. Again, it's because it's one of those B movies. It just kind of disappears into the ether sometimes. You know, it'll suddenly be on every streaming service there is, but at the moment, it's not on anything.
Well, I think that's a very good call for some people to check out. One of the things I would love you guys to check out is our TeePublic store. We have some amazing t-shirts that have been uploaded very recently. We've got, if you're a Star Wars fan, we have a Palatoy logo t-shirt. We have a Kenner logo t-shirt. We have an Atari logo t-shirt. We've got the Defender t-shirt, which I absolutely love, from the arcade machine. And we have vintage Star Wars figures. We have the Last Starfighter logo and a Boba Fett. So head over to our TeePublic store.
There's more coming.
TeePublic. Always more on the way. We're uploading fantastic t-shirt designs for you guys to wear. Check out our Facebook page, which is Retro Inc. Facebook page. Instagram, you can follow us on Insta.
Look at you down with the kids calling it Insta. I love it.
Insta, innit? Yeah, we'd love some comments from you guys and
questions.
Questions, we'd love that. I mean, we obviously did post out this week if you had anything, and we'll continue to do so.
I would love to do a whole episode of listener questions.
Oh, that would be
Wouldn't
awesome.
that be great? A whole episode of just spitballing questions from listeners. Those lovely people out there that make this worth doing.
So here's hoping. So www.retroincpodcast.co.uk, our Facebook page, our Instagram page, our TeePublic store. Would love to hear from you guys. Thanks ever so much for listening. I've been Adam, co-host of my co-friend
Andy. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Take care for now. Thanks for listening to Retro Inc. Podcast.